Good morning to you, my friends, wherever you may be in the world today. Alan Clements here, Los Angeles, California, blessed United States of America, planet Earth, cosmos. This is the 27th talk in a series based upon my newly released book, Extinction, X-Rated. I'm going to talk about it today, along with some other very important themes. Thank you for tuning in. I woke up this morning with a rather vibrant heart. I felt vital. And I had the thought in my meditation, if I had a regret, if I passed away today, what would it be? And I thought that regret would be very clear. It would not be speaking up and offering a tribute to my beloved Myanmar, Burma, one. And secondly, a call, a radical summoning to confront totalitarianism everywhere. In our homes, our city streets, our halls of power, in our very own DNA. And to make a vocation of that throughout our lifetime and pass on that courageous activist gene of freedom for the future of life. So welcome today. A tribute to beloved Burma, and a call to challenge the machinations of dictatorship and totalitarianism and authoritarianism wherever we see it, inside and out, as the sole essence, I would encourage, of our yoga, our dharma, the liberation from conformity, the innate digital, the innate existential, every means possible to confront conformity, manipulation of freedom, and the persecution of those beloved boys and girls, men and women worldwide who speak up in conscience for the preservation and the sacredness of the universality of human rights and equally environmental rights, earth rights, global rights, the freedom of the heart to breathe, to dream, to pray and worship of one's choice in safety and peace. So thank you today for joining in. And, I was thinking, here I am in another incarnation as you are, as I feel and believe. And I was imagining that I was a leader, a young leader in Nazi Germany. I was a believer in Hitler. I was a believer in the Aryan supremacy. I was a believer in purging my country, my beloved Germany, of denigrating literature and behaviors. I was a believer in the rightness of making good people wrong. I was a believer in the hierarchy. I was a believer in totalitarianism. I was a believer in my unrecognized desire for murder. I was a believer in my complicity with an upcoming horror known as the Holocaust. I was a believer. And I was equally thinking that, May 10th, 1933 could be today, with the radical cancellation culture that is so vicious and mean, the diabolical propaganda machine of mainstream corporate media, where you cannot believe what you read anymore. You cannot believe what you hear and see. And I'm thinking, I'm a believer. I am a brown shirt. I'm a radical gangster yogi today. I'm not a brown shirt. I'm a radical gangster yogi. I'm a mindfulness teacher. I'm a former Buddhist monk. I'm a brown shirt. I'm an unrecognized, complicit killer of freedom without even knowing it. The machinations of mind control. We don't need your education. I've been listening to that song lately by Pink Floyd. We don't need your mind control. Yeah, it sounds like, wow, what a great song. What great lyrics. It tells the whole story. The decimation of democracy in Hong Kong should have been enough for us to stand up and cry. The need to decouple the US dollar from the Hong Kong money. The need to confront the genocidal Olympics coming up in China. The need to hold them accountable to the genocide of the Uyghurs. The retribution needed to support the Tibetans 75 years hence. I remember the Dalai Lama saying years and years back, if there isn't help now, there'll be no Tibet to save. Alarmist? No. There is no Tibet to save. Could that be Canada? Could that be Toronto? Could that be Paris? Could that be Germany? Could that be South America? Could that be Los Angeles? Could that be America? Are we feeling and seeing the potential? Yes, it's being talked about. It's no longer conspiratorial. We are in an assault of our freedoms. That is clear. And just look at the country of Burma, a tribute today to Burma. Look at what happened to Burma could equally happen to us. And it is happening to us. We are an interrelated, globally colluded, global society. Our leaders failed. ASEAN failed Burma yesterday. I'm thinking of the German theologian, the Lutheran pastor, Martin Niemoller. So often quoted, almost to the point of nausea, but could it be? He is known to have said, first they came and got the communists, but because I was Lutheran, I didn't speak up. Nope. Those Burmese Buddhists at war with themselves, and because I'm an American, former Buddhist monk, spiritual renegade, I didn't speak up. Mr. Brown Shirt, 1933, May 10, Berlin, burning. Hey man, who is this guy named Clements? He wrote this degenerative, disgusting, poorly written piece of trash. It's me in a previous incarnation. 25,000 different titles thrown into the fire of digital obliteration. Too sexual, too graphic. He looks like he supported the MAGA movement and Trump. Evil. He was insulting of the far left and Biden's collusion, along with Obama's collusion with the genocidal nuclear-armed declaration of a new global order in China. The Financial Times, Xi Jinping. There will be a new global order. History repeating itself. Throw that damn thing away. We don't need your education. I don't give a damn if it's rooted in free speech. We are at that position today. 11 million Jews exterminated because of me being unaware of my collusion with my unrecognized identification with totalitarianism and my need for hierarchy and authoritarianism. Adolf Hitler. Burma's burning at the stake today. They then came and got the trade unionists Mr. Niemoller talked about. But because I was a Lutheran. No, because I was a Buddhist. I don't like that bitch Aung San Suu Kyi, man. She threw the Muslims under the bus. Screw her. Handmaiden of genocide, defending that evil, military. It serves her to be back in jail. Imagine that. That's me around that fire in Berlin throwing this piece of trash book, Aung San Suu Kyi, The Voices of Hope, into the fire. I mean, it is insane today to sit back and think that we can trust the halls of power and the men and women so-called voted into those places of power, or that we can trust the media. Burma. 9 weeks of increasing terrorism, to the point of Dr. Sasa at the United Nations screaming out, please intervene, man, woman. There's a genocide going down in my country. Yesterday, Ming Online in his suit is in Jakarta with ASEAN leaders. They supposedly tell him, stop the violence. Imagine just watching a group of ignorant pig men gang rape a woman. And over here, they're all sipping wine, drinking tea, and smoking cigars. And stop the rape. And Ming Online goes back to his country of Myanmar. We will consider my sacred brothers and sisters of ASEAN's call to end the violence when we put out the murderers, the protesters, the rioters, the lovers of freedom. I'm a brown shirt, and I throw the book into the fire in 1933, and Mr. Martin Niemoller screams out to the world. They then came and got the queers and the lesbians and the trans and the gays and the radical artists and the satirists and the comedians and the writers of pornography like Mr. Clements. I'm a psychotherapist in New York, big client base. I'm an atheist. I listen to Sam Harris's podcast. I'm a follower of Mr. Peterson. I'm a level-headed rationalist. Oh, those idiots over there. God, too bad. But that Aung San Suu Kyi, man, she really failed. She's a fallen icon. The bitch. Sorry, but an indirect way of brown shirting her ass and throwing her under the bus. Yeah, this is an alarmist talk. Why? There's a fire in our homes, in our house, in the world today, not just in Burma, or in Hong Kong, or in Tibet, or among the Uyghurs, or among the blacks in America and the world, or among those who do not have and cannot be heard at this moment, screaming as the missiles and the jet planes attack yet again the city streets in the deserts of Yemen and Syria and Afghanistan. Oh, Mr. Biden, let's celebrate. You're withdrawing the American troops from Afghanistan after another failed, ridiculous war. And what about Iraq? And what about all the arms merchants? What about all the money and the profiting on Wall Street? What about all that killing machine? Throw them under the bus. As if there's something to applaud there? Then they came and got the American Western Buddhists. And because I was a kind of New Agean, Hindu-fied spiritual gangster, although I liked some of them, I didn't say much. I did a petition. I signed my name, and I gave my $5 a month to Amnesty. Man, but too bad. I've got a class to teach. But because I didn't speak up, well, then they came and got the Lutherans. Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. In Burma today, the terrorist Ming Online, he has made a decree of evil just like Adolf Hitler did. First, identify them, then tattoo them, work them to death, and exterminate them systematically. The same in Burma today. Any leader in hiding, the terrorist Ming Online has made a decree to detain, torture, incarcerate friends and family. That is so, so, so evil. And yet they keep rising up. But because we didn't speak up and their Burmese and ASEAN leaders said, hey man, we have a policy of non-interference, especially when there's terror and rape and assassination and torture. Namaste. I see the God in you as the God in me. If you need to rape her, please use a condom, Ming Online. And if you're going to kill the boys and girls, please try to do it as painless as possible, like just slit their throat or put a bullet right through their forehead. But don't do it slowly the way you've been doing it, please. Sick. This planet is convulsing in a sickness, and yet here we are, not speaking up, voting against our conscience, being trained and manipulated to vilify friends. Piece of shit book. Degenerate trash. Incarcerate. Carve his eyes out. Ruin his mind. Capture him. Exterminate he and his family. Is that our world today? Is this an alarmist statement? If it is, so be it. Because we have history to look at, right? We have what the Lutheran theologian, priest, Martin Niemoller, and then they came for me, he said. And because there was no one left, to speak up for me. Isn't that a genius trans-religious core teaching on how we live our lives and how we enter everything that we do as an expression of keeping the radiance of freedom and authenticity and nonconformity and independent thinking and the right to conscience and speech? This is a scream for freedom. This is a scream to end totalitarianism. This is a scream of compassion in my little way that I love you enough to scream for you. I wish I was at the front lines of a revolution. This is just print and thought on paper. But I'm inviting you to participate in the cry and the scream to end totalitarianism wherever we see it today. And a tribute to Burma halfway through. I was thinking of my last trip to Burma, and I had the blessings to meet Burma's first prime minister, U Nu, his daughter, Dothan, who lives in the very compound where she grew up. I met her father when he was detained many decades back. I was blessed to be in the monastery that he was one of the co-founders for, the Mahasi Thatanayekta. I was given his very room that was dedicated to him, but he was both out of the country and also under house arrest, and so it was vacant, and there I was. I had a deep affiliation with this man, and I finally met his daughter on this last trip, just by a weird serendipity of events down a back street, and I saw like a broken board that said the UNU Museum, and it was like locked up and vacant. And I went back the next day, and it happened to be unchained, and walked in, and there was his grandson. And it was like, oh my goodness. Then he introduced me to his aunt, Unu's daughter, Dothan, and what an epic heart and epic mind, so poised, so measured, one of those, such a dignified woman. With all the hardships that have gone down in her country, all the convulsions that she's seen firsthand. I remember her telling me that we, in our numerous meetings, which I recorded and included as one of the more recent interviews in my collection of books, Burma's Voices of Freedom, brought forth by my colleague and I, Fergus Harlow. She told me of the day that the dictator, Ne Win, who was the grandfather dictator of the terrorists today in Naypyidaw, the capital of Burma, Ming Online. His first son was Tan Shui. He appointed Ming Online, a direct descendant of evil. Ne Win. She was a young woman, a young girl in the house late at night. She said, we heard these incredible cranking sounds and lights and sounds, and all of a sudden the door is being knocked open and there's soldiers. And she remembers hearing the man who was leading this charge, "Where is the maggot?" Meaning her father, the Prime Minister, Unu. And she's recalling this from decades before. And they take away her father, and in this walkie-talkie, the man says with a perverse, evil sense of joy, "We've got the maggot." The Prime Minister, captured by the very general he appointed to lead the army, Ne Win. A military coup d'etat. I pause here. Decades later, I'm sitting with her, and here I am today, April 27, 2021. If I had but one regret before I die, is not speaking up a tribute to Burma, a call, a cry to confront totalitarianism wherever we see it, in our home, in our communities, in our schools and churches, in our meditation centers, in our restaurants, in our halls of power, in the United Nations, among leaders, everywhere, anywhere, forever, from time immemorial to the furthest reaches of the future of life. To make that the religion of timelessness, the love of freedom, that it's coupled with the responsibility to courageously challenge the machinations of dictatorship and totalitarianism and authoritarianism inside and outside. First, they came and got the socialist, but because I was a German theologian and a Lutheran pastor, replace that with anything whatsoever that we call as a marker or an identifier. I'm a comedian, I'm a satirist, I'm an atheist, I'm a podcaster, I'm an actress, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a yogi, I'm a middle-class citizen. Whatever. Is it possible for the formation of the Fourth Reich? Many of you paid attention to the decimation of the democracy movement in Hong Kong. There was something in that, just like in Tiananmen Square, just like in Burma in 1988, also back in 1990, and also back in the Saffron Revolution in 2007, and equally the Spring Revolution, February 1st until this day in Burma. Is something not right? The Dalai Lama, ever so politely saying, if we do not act soon, global community, there'll be no Tibet to save. That must have been, what, 30 years ago that he said that? There's no Tibet to save now. The Chinese have fully occupied it. A crime against the totalitarian Xi Jinping's empire to have a picture of the Dalai Lama, a Buddha statue. They must put in those places the picture of the genocidal sicko, Xi Jinping, the true God figure. The desecration of religion, the desecration of the spirit, that's what totalitarian wants. The man at the top and the collusive, the oligarchical collusive band of idiots and running dogs around them. The man and the soullessness of the man is a higher priority than the existential beauty of the cosmos, creation, the soul of the universe, the truth, the timeless principles of beingness are more important? No. They're less important? No. They are worthy of denigrating and committing genocide for those who espouse, live, and breathe a love of freedom. I want to pause here. I want to ask myself and ask you as well, why in the are they killing, torturing, raping, and sending a jagged, glass-infused tsunami of terror through Burma? If you stand up and align with Aung San Suu Kyi, if you stand up and align with freedom, if you stand up and align with the Kachins, the Karins, the Hmons, the Rakhines, the Buddhists, the Muslims, if you stand up and want a unified national party, if you stand up and believe that freedom and democracy based upon your diabolical, evil relationship to the way it manifests in the West, you will be killed. We will terrorize you. We'll take you out of your flat and force you to dance before we rape you, to humiliate you to the population of the people. I am not comfortable with that. I pray that you are not comfortable with that. The great teaching of timelessness, the Reverend, Lutheran pastor, the German theologian, the Braveheart, Martin Niemoller. First, they came and got the Americans. But because I was a German, I went back and gave a rousing sermon to my people about the power of love. Brown shirt with my own book, The Degenerate. He's thinking that Stanley Kubrick's movie of A Clockwork Orange is a worthy way to approach the eradication of evil in the consciousness of men and women who espouse dictatorship and violence, and who drink wine and smile and celebrate Game of Thrones at night and wake up in their suits all pressed and espouse peace and democracy, and yet kill through order of decree Could we say enough about the rise of the activist heart in all of us to question, mindfully disavow ourselves from any collusion, complicity, connection to the evil of totalitarianism wherever we see it? That means people who are intolerant of freedom of speech, freedom of thought, those who want to scream and love and dance and dream. Why are they killing these people in Burma? Why did they decimate democracy and freedom of speech in Hong Kong? Why are they genocidally torturing the Muslim Uyghurs in China? Why are they having a firewall behind 1.4 billion Chinese who've never known a day of freedom in their life? Why is Silicon Valley continuing to digitally supply that firewall with more preventative measures to keep it ironclad and to keep the propaganda of lies perpetuated into the mind of the people who know it's bullshit? But because I'm Canadian and they're Chinese, I'll sign a petition. I'll give my donation to Human Rights Watch. God, that damn bitch Aung San Suu Kyi, it's just too bad. Too bad she got corrupted by power. You know, everyone said she was authoritarian. You know, too bad. God, I'm a feminist, but I can't include her. No, I'm a human rights activist. No, she failed the mission. I've never been to Burma. I've never read a book about Burma, but the New York Times told me she's evil and therefore it's true. And of course, Bono spoke up and said, please, you know, she should resign, and he's got it all right. And Sir Geldof, you know, he knows everything. I mean, he threw her into the trash and called her a handmaiden of genocide. Hey, man, he's never been to Burma. He knows more than I do, you know. Hey, man. I'm that brown shirt. Throwing all those books to be burned into that fire of Berlin just a short 90 years ago. We're going to look back today to 2021, and the book burnings of today, the lynchings of those who espouse freedom and democracy, and not anti-vaxxers, but those who, hey, Mr. Fauci, I know you're a psychopath and you've got your hand in that Wuhan lab in China and that you funded it, and that you have a deep relationship to the profiting off of vaccine with all of your historical relationships and present time relationships with all the vaccine companies, and that you're a bona fide liar in the face of truth. Hey, why can't I say that? Oh, he's just a conspiracy cultist, paranoid, idiotic nobody who wrote this bullshit book. It could have been written better, man. And it's just throw it in the fire and throw him in the fire. What in the hell does it take for us to decouple from our stupidity and to really just strip ourselves naked of pretense and go, hey man, I am the Lutheran pastor. I am Martin Niemoller. And then they came and got the residents of Marin County. And because I'm a resident of Marin County, there was no one left to speak up. Hello? Multiply that times Chicago to Manhattan to Santa Fe to Sydney to Byron Bay, all the great hot spots in even southern Portugal. They came and got me. Alarmist, alarmist, alarmist. No. Unrestricted war today isn't just bang, 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 right? Saying things that are so obvious. It is digital mind control. 1984 is 2024 in the making. My Scream, this is my 1984 with Blue Velvet, and I am, yes, so sexually explicit in this. Why can't you write about anti-porn and anti-war in the most explicit terms? And why should it be vilified or judged or banned or God, what happened to him under lockdown when in fact the world is shredded with the shrapnel of unremitting rape and genocide and totalitarian evil if we could hear the scream of a girl right now in the gulag of Rangoon's prison, being raped, her vagina bleeding with horror from these malicious, satanic, evil military, one by one, coming in her. Yeah, be graphic, okay? Those are just words. Be in her body. Who could imagine that? Who could imagine that? I can't. And then they came and got me out of my therapist chair talking to a trauma person who had been violated at a mindfulness retreat by a young Buddhist teacher. And because I was a psychotherapist doing my job in Chicago, there was no one left to speak up for me. I think it's coming. I think it's coming. I can feel it. I can feel it. Coming to the end today, which I hope is never an end. And like I said, I began this talk. If I had a regret before I die, if I were to die, even today, mid-sentence, by tonight, I'm okay. It is not speaking up. A tribute to Burma, my spiritual Dhamma homeland, the people of that beloved country, 54 million people suffering the persecution, the denigration, the assassination, the torture, the terror of this evil man, Ming Online and his terrorist group, the State Administration Council, his Third Reich, as a participant and collusion with China and Russia. That's the bigger issue. That's the Fourth Reich. These guys have globe and us on their mind. That's my gut feeling. That's why I think everything I'm saying today is so apropos to, okay, the new Dharma is not just an ism or the adaptation of our Dharma to modern circumstances, or think that the vaccine is the issue, or the non-vaccine, or the far left agenda and their collusion with Xi Jinping and global totalitarianism and the oligarchs of Wall Street and the oligarchs of Silicon Valley. And this, our president was deplatformed. Okay, he's got serious personality disorder. Okay, so what? And then they came and got the ones who didn't have a serious personality disorder. And because I didn't speak up for the ones who did have a personality disorder rather than a genocidal psychopathic gene, no, I think I'm going to stand. No, kill me. I'd rather go to my grave hating the MAGA movement. I'd rather go to my grave being deranged for my hatred of Donald Trump. Okay? I put it all in the book. Curse me to the end of my life for satirizing the wisdom stupidity of Trump, the stupidity wisdom of Biden, my country's unthinkable complicity with genocide, to perpetuate forever wars, putting ourselves in the body of the girl in Yemen, looking at us today in the camera of our own mind and our own heart and saying, hey you Carol, hey you Tess, hey you Brenna, hey you Janine, hey you Marcia, hey you Mitch, hey you Bob, hey you Jenny, hey you Tara, your money, your apathy, your collusion. Look at my body, it's cannibalizing myself based upon your support for weapons being rained down on me in your unwillingness to do jack shit to stop the killing machine of your fucking arms merchants, and your need for perpetual oil, and your need for denial. Listen, Martin Niemoller has told you there is no safety in isolation. I am you. Thank you for your collusion with evil. and I've just about to starve, because there's no more tears that are possible in a starving person. There's no more emotion in a starving person. It's all dead as they die. (1938), the Declaration of Guilt was born, and eventually it was conceived post-war in 1945. The Declaration of Guilt, very important part of this talk for me. Martin Niemoller, he was a Nazi sympathizer. He was Alan Clements, a brown shirt. He threw the book in the fire. Wow. Wow. He spoke from direct experience. He was a theologian shirt. His brown shirt was the cape of the Lutheran pastor. But the Declaration of Guilt, in which they confessed their inadequacies in opposition to the Nazis and the Third Reich. They confessed their guilt of their inadequacies. Let us pause right now. May I invite you to invite me to invite our family and friends and digital tribe in this tribute to Burma, in this scream against totalitarianism, wherever we see it, to really feel mindfully unvarnished intimacy and wisdom into our inadequacies with regard to our conviction and our courage, our ethical, spiritual intelligence to employ the rightness of speaking up in our own little way, supporting civil dialogue, freedom of argument, the reinstatement through Twitter and Facebook and Instagram of our opposition voices, the celebration of diversity in America, Canada, the EU, worldwide, the celebration, not the evilification, not the Nazification. Can you hear it? Can you see it? Can you feel it? The press is calling all this stuff that I'm sharing today, that you're thinking and saying, as conspiratorial, unhinged, stupid, crazy. Throw his bullshit book into the fire. Condemn him in the littlest of ways. Oh, it's so graphic. It's so porno. God, he's so uncouth. I knew he was unhinged. He has trauma that's unrecognized. Too bad. Too much meditation. Too many drugs. Too long on antidepressants. Yeah, he did a good thing, but oh, he died, did he? Namaste. Fuck you. Fuck you, right? What about totalitarianism? We're all on the same team, man. Come on, women. Come on, crazy savants. Stand up, rise up, learn how we are inadequate to ourselves, where we're folded. The Declaration of Guilt. Confessing their guilt after 20 million people are exterminated? How inadequate is that? But yet an incredible marker in the conscience of humankind, but a mere footnote that few people even recognize. Do we want to have a moment in 2040 of a confession of guilt for the 500 million people that are left alive after 7.5 billion have been exterminated by variants on these diabolical viruses that are going to probably be so specific that they target those who love freedom. Look at the algorithms today. Imagine what they could do to manipulate biology. Oh boy, he is really, really losing it there in the isolation of his home in Santa Monica. Okay. Like I said today, if I could never say another thing in this world, this is my cry. This is my scream. And if you want to hear it, should I die, and you want to read it, this is my scream to end totalitarianism. I want no part of it. I don't want my daughter to feel the fear because she's whatever she wants to be sexually. If she even wants to be a celibate, that she wants to be a nun without a religious order, that she wants to sing, that she wants to dream, that she wants to conceive a thing post-hip-hop, that she wants to be the woman she wants to be, and she wants to do it on the terms of her integrity called the universality of freedom of thought and speech. And she's raped for that and then tarred and feathered and burned alive at the stake of inadequacy of other people who did not speak up. I don't want to be the last person on earth and realize there's no one left up to speak up for me. We are coming close to a sixth mass extinction. And just today I'm thinking that that extinction may still happen while human beings still walk the earth in mass. The extinction may be of freedom, the extinction of the universality of human dignity as a priority over conformity, the extinction of authenticity, the extinction of the yoga of freedom, the extinction. Imagine 10,000 people at a retreat meditating now, all programmed by a silicone chip that you've had embedded in your body. And you meditate perfectly, in-breath, out-breath, and you have a perfectly concentrated insight according to the classical Buddhist text. And yet there is no one there to experience the insight. It is all programmed to make you adapt to a passivity and an organized realm of thinking and behaviors that accord with your deeper desire to be an awakened Buddhist, all controlled through AI. Through dictatorship, unrecognized, unrestricted war, totalitarianism. I can hear it. It first came for those in Hong Kong, but because I was a Canadian, an American, or a German, or a French, or Portuguese, or Brazilian, I did not speak up. Boy, he is really losing it today. He must have some complexity going on. He must be seen. Let me send him a couple of $100 to see a psychiatrist. Give him a low dose, pacify. Is this trauma? Is this fear? No. I really do believe if I had never ever spoke again on earth, you are hearing from me. I am saying in my own humble way with my 47 possible viewers, maybe less. Who cares? Who is the Reverend Martin Niemoller? Will you pronounce that, please? Where do you find him on Wikipedia? He was a Nazi sympathizer. Is it possible because I voted for Biden that I'm a Nazi sympathizer? But Trump is a Nazi. Trump is a Hitler. Could I have just actually chosen the greater of the evils being manipulated? Did the New York Times, did the CNN manipulate my mind? Was the election stolen? Oh, did you dare say that? Arrest him. Deplatform him. I'm not even on Twitter. I'm a lover of freedom. I like to dance in my authenticity, and what I'm seeing in myself right now is an expression of freedom of thought. Be provoked. Be turned off. So be it. That's the love of democracy. In Burma, bang, bang, rape, rape, kill, kill, cut, cut. You come out, we'll slice your throat. We'll ruin your genitals. We'll send a terror through your families. They're taking grandparents. They're taking children. They're taking pregnant women. People are having strokes and heart attacks. under interrogation. The terror is so severe. But because I was reading a book on the formation of the Fourth Reich, and I was a liberal American enjoying my stock options in Facebook in the fidelity of my home in Seattle, I listened for a couple of minutes to Mr. Clements' talk, but my porn addiction was more important, and I didn't speak up. Control, control, control. Look at all the ways, the machinations of totalitarianism. Well, the Reverend Niemoller went to Dachau for 5 years. Barely escaped execution. I can't even imagine a minute in a concentration camp. I cannot imagine. One of my favorite sections, actually, of this book is this great Polish woman. I'm not going to even say her name, so you are forced to be among the 20 people who buy this book. That she was such a radical, that she did something so rad. It's one of my favorite sections of the book. She uses her feminine sexual integrity, her power, to allure the leadership of the Third Reich into her sacred vagina. And she does exactly what you could imagine doing. You could imagine what she did. We are in the fight of our lives. The declaration of guilt. So I'll close with this in tribute to Burma. One of my great friends in Burma, a mentor, an ally, a brother, an uncle, but most decidedly a mentor, a revolutionary teacher, also a long-time, I want to say, follower of my teacher, the late Venerable Sayadaw U Pandita, who was appointed the successor to my preceptor, the late Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw of Myanmar. And there's so much I could say about the beauty of the people, the country, at another time, but this is about totalitarianism and the challenge to that. And his name is U Tin U. He was the former general under the first dictator, Ne Win. The man who imprisoned Daw Than Than Nhew's father, Prime Minister U Nu. Boy, that's in close. And I first met him in Rangoon at the monastery when a procession of cars came in, and this gentleman was given a room near mine. And I found out later that he was actually the former general under the dictator Ne Win. And shortly thereafter, although living in silence, he ordained as a monk, and we became very close friends. There's so many stories of my relationship with him alone among hundreds of other known and unknown fabulous people, not just Buddhists, but many friends that were Catholics and Jews and Muslims, atheists, singers, dancers, rock stars. I just love my relationships in Myanmar, in Burma. I love their love of freedom. I love their revolutionary spirit. I love their courage. I love their mind-boggling dedication to mindfulness and meditation. I love their deep orthodoxy to protect these timeless teachings of the Buddha and the sanctity of a culture. And yet, the convulsions of dictatorship and totalitarianism. And U Tin U told me about how he was detained by his brother, father, ally, Ne Win, unexpectedly, because Ne Win feared that U Tin U, who was so popular in the country, that he would do as Ne Win did and to create a military coup d'etat and take over the country and possibly imprison Ne Win himself. And so he preempted that possibility through his paranoia and put his dear ally, the general of the army, U Tinu, in prison in solitary. It's very intense to have someone explain to you the life of someone in solitary confinement. And he was the initial experience that led me to seek out in Burma and other places in the world too, but primarily in Burma, to seek out former political prisoners who lived, suffered, grew, and challenged the machinations of interrogation, torture, and long-term incarceration for their love of freedom. There's something so rad about that. It's one thing to sit here in the comfort of a home in Santa Monica and scream out about these timeless beauties and challenging the epic evils of dictatorship, but it's another thing altogether, obviously, to be at the front lines in Burma today, knowing that you could die, be tortured, or your family could be die or be tortured, or be incarcerated and tortured. Well, U Tinu was incarcerated and tortured for 6 years. And someone threw in a small book, the very book that turned me on to meditation, that brought me to the monastery, by our teacher, Mahasi Sayadaw, the practical instructions on insight meditation. So beautiful. And he said to be stripped of all of your badges, your comforts, your home, your family, your children, your rank, your privilege. Strip, strip, strip. Imagine that. Whoa, whoa. And you're given this book on how to manage your mind, how to be engaging of your emotions, your physical discomforts, the mosquitoes, the lack of toothpaste, no toilet paper, no running water, no bath once a week, no blanket, no pillow, stark, naked evil. Mindfulness got me through. Meditation got me through. Loving kindness helped. Compassion helped. He became a monk. And yet, my point here is, he said, Alan, paraphrasing U Tinu, well, he called me by my monk's name, Uegathara. Do you know much about Burma? And I said, no, I don't. He said, do you know that this country is ruled by a tyrannical dictator named Ne Win? I said, I only know the name, but I don't know much about him, and I know nothing about dictatorship, except that I gather it's really wrong. I was just so deeply embedded in another day in the life of an American Buddhist living in a monastery, practicing this timeless teachings of Dhamma and mindfulness, in-breath, out-breath, sitting, walking, tasting, touching, thinking, feeling, judging, hurting, loving, hoping, occasionally a little insight into this and that. I said, no, I know nothing about totalitarianism. He said, well, this country is governed by a maniacal dictator named Ne Win, who has brought forth, in his own diabolical way, the psychology of totalitarianism. All the food that you eat and the medicines and the robes are given to you by people who live under radical duress. He's nationalized all the businesses. People struggle to make a living. There are people who disappear without even knowing how they disappeared. Their families can't find them because of this or that. They live in fear of terror of the dictator. Human rights have been progressively squashed. I really didn't even know the word human rights. Context. First of all, my mindfulness was so self-centric, so driven by the ideology of Dhamma and Buddhism and me learning to overcome the obstacles within me, I had no real awareness of context. Set aside totalitarianism. My Reverend Martin Niemoller was not active. I would be a classic example. First they came and got all the lay people in Rangoon. Because I was an American Buddhist monk in the monastery, I didn't speak up. And that was an amazingly luminous discussion. Jump time. U Tinu became one of the founders of the National League for Democracy in 1988 with the Aung San Suu Kyi, along with U Win Tin and others, U Chi Mong. And they founded a revolutionary political party dedicated to nonviolence and the power of reconciliation with the evil empire of the dictator that imprisoned them. Shortly thereafter, U Tinu was taken under house arrest and eventually incarcerated again. I met him in 1995 after his 6 years of solitary confinement, again making it 12 years of solitary confinement. And he was the one who introduced me to Aung San Suu Kyi. And she agreed to do our book, The Voice of Hope, which I might add, Aung San Suu Kyi, U Tinu, U Win Tin, U Win Tain, U Wei Mong, all the great women activists, Nila Thain, Momo Myat, there's so many. Their essence, their voice of freedom is the sole essence of what I tried to channel to bring forth this scream to end violence, totalitarianism, and war. And U Tinu told me that it was so challenging to be in this 6-year detention in insane prison. And it prompted me to ask him, which I've documented, and I'll close with this. I asked him, sir, you say it was really dark in solitary. If I may ask, sir, with deep respect, how do you get through the darkest times? I could paraphrase his communication in an hour or more, but I'll do it in 2 minutes. He looked at me as many people who were really present do, look at you very closely without assault. And he took my hand, and the Burmese are very intimate. He took my hand and squeezed it. Never forget the day he did this in Aung San Suu Kyi's compound at 54 University Avenue in Rangoon. It's so poignant and crazy that she's yet again incarcerated. 4,300 people are incarcerated. So many have been killed and assassinated. The country's being terrorized right now as we speak. Where is our Martin Niemoller? ASEAN failed, the United Nations failed, America's failed, sanctions are useless. Where are those soldiers and those right to protect? Why aren't they in the country? Why didn't the Allied forces liberate Auschwitz and Dachau sooner? Why didn't the world community liberate the Auschwitz of Burma? Why? How can one justify the inadequacy of inaction and the cruelty of the lack of compassion? How can one justify the denial of one's inadequacies, the declaration of guilt post-genocide of Burma? Post-genocide of the world will not be adequate as a resolution of learning from our mistakes. Let us wake up out of the coma of complacency and translation of inadequacy, priority of affluence and privilege. Strike, protest, demand, speak up, don't wait for the powers to act. We are many. They, as it's been said, are few. Question our inadequacies. See it as strength. He took my hand. He said, when it gets dark in solitary confinement, it gets really dark. No bed, no blanket, no pillow, no mosquito net. Oh my God, unthinkable. Unthinkable Auschwitz, unthinkable Dachau, unthinkable the horrors all around the world right now. Unthinkable the girl being gang raped in the prison in Burma right now is my daughter. Unthinkable. I never want to grow comfortable. This is not stress. This is the emergence of my little degree of compassion and caring. Is it yours? I want to be known despite if I die right now, even if it is stress. I spoke up. I'm encouraging the world. Send this video, a digital message of hope out of the bottle. Send it around the world. Let us speak up before it's too late. No bed, no toilet, no paper, no paste. And yet I was a leader, a founder of the National League for Democracy. I was a leader of the revolution of the spirit. We practiced mindfulness, Alan, in the monastery, seeing, hearing, tasting. Yes, it helped to a large extent. But when it really got dark, mindfulness was not enough. The food was just wretched. It wasn't even fit for dogs. I found when they served it, a contraction. Obviously, I'm animating my experience with my mentor, my dear friend, U Tanu. Wretched. Just, you're being given food and it's wretched. Imagine a maggot in our food. Imagine it rancid, and this is the food you eat. 6 years in solitary. What the boys and girls in the prisons in Burma right now are eating, along with being raped and tortured and persecuted. Their parents are in there too. And I didn't speak up. ASEAN had the audacity to simply make clear, like China and Russia and other, a policy of no interference. That is psychotic response. That's deep collusion with Adolf Hitler's 11 million Jews and gays and savants and artists and intellectuals, including me, thrown into the chambers. And it wasn't me. I was a Lutheran and I didn't speak up. I was a Buddhist and I didn't speak up. I was a yoga teacher. I didn't speak up. I don't know what to do. What should I do? Like sign up. And he decided, U Tanu, rather than eating 3 meals a day, 3 wretched meals, he saw that the guards that came around were also suffering and hungry. And he gave them his 3rd meal in the evening. And that, he said to me, relieved some of the pain of the inadequacies of the quality of food and himself feeling as a victim, which really disturbed him as a leader. A Christian guard, he told me, smuggled in some of the classic verses of Jesus, but because I was a Buddhist, I really didn't read them with any heart. But then one day when I was in deep despair, I read them, and they really activated something very beautiful in me, including to love thine enemy as thyself. They know not what they do. And it reminded him of a deeper, integral causality, that individuals are not really individuals. They're conditioned entities based upon their own life, upbringing, and the diabolical DNA of our aberrant satanic god called samsara. And it relieved him of some of the tension of isolation of I and other, that duality of I'm wronged by their wrong. And it relaxed. And he felt a modicum, he told me, of forgiveness and intimate interrelatedness, even with his guards and those who command those guards. And eventually, through a whole sequence of other insights that he shared with me in this hour-long exchange, I'll conclude with the final statement he made. And of course, it's also animated and paraphrased, because I'm a believer that stories are not things that you recall from the past, although I'm speaking about Martin Niemoller. I'm speaking about my incarnation as a brown shirt and throwing all those books and burning them and telling people, jail them, take them out, they're degenerates, immoral, deviant, disgusting obscenities, bestiality. I dare they talk about these things. Oh my God. Well, he was still squeezing my hand. And he said, when the going really got tough, really dark, Alan, and he was recalling it in vivid pixelation. And I do believe that these narratives live on to the extent that we live and breathe Martin Niemoller's wisdom. They live and breathe Anne Frank's wisdom. They live and breathe Elie Wiesel's wisdom. They live and breathe Martin Luther King's wisdom. They live and breathe Gandhi's wisdom. They live and breathe the Buddha's wisdom. They live and breathe the great women and the men all throughout history that breathed and lived freedom of mind, the love of diversity, the love of the dream, the love of creativity, the challenge to dictatorship inside and out on all of our city streets and the halls of power. They say no to totalitarianism and yes to freedom. And he's squeezing my hand. And he said, Alan, when the going really became dark, I imagined from within, I recalled memories of love as his Dhamma. So cool. It's like a very innovative expression of the timeless teaching of metta, loving kindness. I recalled memories of love, and I brought into high, vivid imagery. Say, for example, a memory of love with my wife. You could see him becoming light and radius. I remember a moment we were together talking and how easy it would be to overlook her smell, her radiance, the movements of her face and mannerisms, her cheeks, her lips, her teeth, her breathing, her eyes, the color of her eyes, the blinking of her eyes, the wind on her hair, the history of our lives together, a memory of love with all the ecosystem. And first they came and got the communists, and because I was a Buddhist, I didn't speak up. And he's now in the most intimate fidelity of a memory of love. And it's so rad for me. And he's recalling the interactive poetry, if you will, of a moment of time with his wife. And he said there were many of these things that he brought to mind because there were a lot of dark moments. But he's recalling his wife. And her words, you know, normally when we listen and talk with one another, it's elegant, it's poised, it's anything but habitual, especially if there's high stakes, if there's a struggle or a complexity or a vulnerability, or if you understand the role of a therapist, a healer, a guide, a lover, someone who sits with someone in MDMA as they transition. Your heart's there, right? I'm hearing his memory of love. Our heart's there. Hearing the love of intimacy as the soul of freedom. The dream together. Freedom is just the freedom to live, to be. What will you do with the preciousness of a full breath? Who will you kiss? Who will you make love with? How will you make love? What will you write? How will you love? How will you revere? What will you say if you're uncentered? What's your most radical expression of caring? And I listened to her words like you cannot believe, Alan. Imagine being alone in a fucking prison cell with no blankets and mosquito nets and medicines and toothbrush and a toilet, and not having any contact like Aung San Suu Kyi right now. No phone, no email, no scrolling, no attitude, no zafu, no blanket, no clothing to choose from, no whole foods, no fasting. Epic. Burma today. America tomorrow. And he told me he would take the memory of love and he would lift it from memory on an emotional level. Get this. He would take out of the stencil of that imaging inside consciousness through his mindfulness training and his intimacy training. Those of you who are psychically intuitive will know this. Those who are really, really silent and intimately awake more and more will know this is true. He occupied the radiant emotionality of the memory. And he told me he brought memory into the present. It was already present, but he lifted from the present a more intimate presence. It's like doing MDMA or something when you're transitioning, as I'm told. Well, maybe it's me soon too, I don't know. And it's like you're dying before you're dying. And it's not really a death. It's a resurrection. It's an ascension. It's a birth. It's an occupying of your angel. At least that's how I see it. It's removing the primordial attachments to history, to form, to breathing, to the lungs. My freedom is not my oxygen, and I'm now transitioning. Those of you who work in hospice know all that. For me, it's new, but I'm sitting with Utenu. Bringing history into the present. This is a very beautiful teaching for me because I'm in my communications, which are so few right now with people. I can see how they move historically and through time, but then they become very radiant in the immediacy of a shared emotionality that isn't static or glue or fixed. It's very luminous. And right there in that kind of ubuntuification of a kind of a sapiosexual eroticism of high, intimate Dhamma feelings. I wanted to say truths, but they're Dhamma feelings. I love you, Utenu. He's alive. I saw him recently. He had a stroke. He can't talk. But he held my hand for 2 hours. And maybe I'll post a film of it soon. Beautiful mind. And he told me, he concluded, and I brought the past into the present. And I let the emotionality of the presence, of the memory of love, just fill my heart, fill my body, fill my mind. Think of that refuge. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang. I take refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, always available right here and now. I took a memory of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, a memory of love, and brought it right through the filter of Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. My wife is Sangha, my Dhamma, my Buddha. And he looked at me, he opened his eyes with his squeezing my hand, and he said, it's this warmth, this ability to bring the beauty of the past into the present, this warmth And you can see him struggling a little bit. He said, yes, it's human warmth that gets you through the darkest times, starting with yourself. Something so beautiful to know that we always have that available to us. These are the lessons, the hymns from the prison camps. And so from my heart to yours, a tribute to the blessed, courageous folks of Burma challenging totalitarianism, and to all the people worldwide right now supporting Myanmar. Please speak out. And also in our own homes, our schools, our churches, our synagogues, our mosques, our halls of power, our communications with friends and foes. Wherever we are, wherever we go, keep alive the radiance of the freedom of conscience, the freedom of speech. Speak out, write, communicate your love of freedom in every way humanly possible, right? And more. Invent freedom a million different ways. Keep the rainbow, the spectrum, the valiance of freedom so active that the boys and girls, the animals, the trees, the suns, and even Satan himself, the Mara everywhere in this universe, that they are blinded by our love and light of freedom. Let us bring freedom, light the candle, right? And dispel the darkness. And let us never, ever try to forget the love of human intimacy with nature, with other, and with self, keeping high the communion of human warmth here and now. And may I conclude I stand in solidarity with the people of Myanmar. They are brave. They're unthinkably brave. They are showing us in the world a behavior, a way of thinking, a way of living that includes fear, that includes terror. They're not free of that, but they are refusing to cower. Not just to Ming Online and his terrorist group. They're refusing to cower to totalitarianism. And if we have a lesson here, just like Martin Niemoller, Martin Niemoller said to us, first they came and got the socialists and the trade workers, then the sex workers, glad they got rid of them. Then they came and got those Muslims, glad they got rid of them even more than the sex workers. And honey, who's that at the door? It's the totalitarian white police. And now they're coming for spiritual gangsters. They're coming for yoga teachers. They're coming for white privileged Buddhist teachers. They're coming for the Jews and the Muslims, the privileged. They're coming for Mark Zuckerberg. They're coming for Joseph Biden. They're coming for all of us if we don't fucking stop the march of the genocidal, nuclear-armed, totalitarian, unrestricted war on planet Earth and consciousness driven by the oligarchs on Wall Street, Silicon Valley, Washington, through the capitals of the Europe, through the vaccines, through fucking China. We are seeing the rise of the Cobra head of the Fourth Reich. It's coming in everywhere, into our bodies, into our minds, into the media. Turn back our collusion, our complicity with buying the propaganda. Throw off your brown shirt and run naked onto the streets of your own liberty and just say, fuck you, man, I refuse, go to hell. And keep your fingers high for Burma. What's happening in Burma, and if we don't support Burma, it's going to happen to us. So from my heart to yours, if I never see you again, let's keep freedom alive. And I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.